Now, many of you are complaining about the issue of doing what? Of raising your children in our modern Western societies and losing your children to the streets and to society as a whole. So what I wanted to do today was give you, three, four tips, something along these lines, to help you to work on saving your children by little things that you could do now. So for those of you who don't have 4, maybe 5 minutes for me to give you these tips, then go ahead, do what you have to do, keep scrolling. And then what we can end up doing is you can contact me later on in life to help your child with my life coaching skills. It's no problem. But for those of you who are ready for these tips, then here we go. The first of these tips is to be consistent when we talk about setting boundaries. For some reason or another, so many of us we're going with these new theories and these new ideas on how we're supposed to raise our kids. What's going to benefit us? They have all of these new ways and techniques. Look around, none of it's working. Kids are getting worse and worse and worse as generations go on, even with these new techniques that they have. What is important for you as a parent, let alone a Muslim parent, trying to instill Islamic values in your children, is to do what? Set boundaries. Now, people will tell you, okay, well, you set boundaries now, your kids are going to grow up, they're not going to be able to make any decisions. No, your boundaries, you're not setting boundaries for, just to be a jerky parent, but you're setting boundaries and you're going to get two types of benefit out of this. First, you set boundaries, you set Islamic boundaries. Okay, these are the times that we're praying in the house. Right? These are the times that we're setting aside for reading Quran. This day during this time, we're going to set aside. They're going to learn to prioritize Islam in their life. Okay, things work around Islam. Two, the other benefit is what's going to help them out later on in life as well is what? They're going to understand that there are rules that they must follow. Because you look at what's going on in the society now, a lot of people are telling children that impulse control and this, that, and the other. No, they're just not used to having to follow rules. And you can continue to allow your children to run and say, okay, well, we have to give them freedom and they're expressing themselves and this. There's nothing wrong with allowing your children to express themselves, but you have to allow them to understand that there are boundaries and you cannot cross these boundaries because when they get older, these are the types of things that are going to keep them out of jail. These are the types of things that are going to keep them off of people's hit lists and things along these sorts as far as who we're going to go after, who we're going to try and punish, who you have to understand that if you don't teach your children now that there are things that they can do and can't do, and there are rules to society, how are you going to teach them to keep a job when they feel as though that they can do everything their way? No, listen, there are rules regardless of where they go. They go to the library, they go to school, they go to their job, wherever it is that they go to the mall, they go to the masjid. There are rules. We can't just say, okay, well, they're just kids, allow them to do what they want to do. No, you have to teach them while they're young, listen to their rules, and raise them upon these rules, understanding that the boundaries are there and they must be met, or they must be kept, I should say. Do you understand where I'm coming from? And if we continue not to raise our children with these boundaries, then we can't blame anybody but ourselves when things run haywire, as we see that they've been doing since we've been allowing these kids to, we'll say, as we used to say, run amok and tell them and tell ourselves and tell other individuals they're just children, they're expressing themselves. You allow them to express themselves, but within their boundaries. The second tip that I want to give you is you have to lead by example. You want your children to grow up and be productive people in society. They need to see you doing this, sitting around watching TV, watching movies all day, playing games all day, and this, and your kids need, you may be getting things done, but your kids need to see you getting things done. They also need to see you prioritizing Islam. It's you're doing whatever you're doing. You know, the adhan may go off on your phone or on your watch or on your computer. You get up and go make wudu and pray. They need to see you prioritizing certain things, benefiting them, doing good for the family, doing good for the community, worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They need to see these things because we've grown up saying certain things. But the reality is that we're not practicing these things. And one of these statements that we've all said, children do what they see, not what they hear. We can tell them all day, listen, be a good Muslim, do this, and make sure that you get this done, and make sure that you, but they see us doing other than that. You know, they used to have this old, uh, I guess it's not really a saying, but they used to say, you know, you tell your children constantly, don't lie, don't lie, don't lie, don't lie, don't lie. But then when the bill collector comes, you tell them, listen, I'm not home. And we all laugh about it. We like, oh, you know, that is kind of hypocritical. But the moral of that is that if we continue to tell our children things and we do something different and they see us doing something different and they don't see us upholding what it is that we're teaching them, how in the world can you expect them to follow? We already know, and it's been known for generations, they're going to do what they see. This is why we have to worry about what we put in front of our kids and only put the good things in front of our kids if we have the ability. Right? So leading by example is super important. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is when we're trying to educate our kids. Many of us, we make a mistake. We make learning, especially learning Islam, difficult for them. We know that children, they have small attention spans. So when you want to teach your kids, you have to do songs and dances and all of the rest of that stuff, and let the flashes flash and all of the rest of that stuff. Why? Because that's just the way you bring their attention back when it scatters. But many of us, we go even further than this, and we sit them down and we drill them. This is the way they memorize this and this. They're children. If you don't want to make them hate learning Islam, you have to make it fun for them. When you're starting to tell them about things and tell them stories about the Sahaba, amazing stories, and this may take you to actually learn some things. But if you're not willing to take the time to learn these things so you can discuss them with your children, how much good are you really trying to establish for them? Because if they're not getting it at home, they're not going to get it at school, and they're not going to get it on TV. They're not going to get it from the video games. We need to be teaching our kids at home as well. So when you're teaching them, make it fun. Get the little Islamic, they have Islamic coloring books all over the place. And if you can't get them in your communities, you can get them online. And color with your children. And explain to them, okay, well, listen, this was supposed to be this person, and this was supposed to be, you know, he was a great scholar. It's like you don't have to go into detail, you don't have to learn their whole biography, but you should still be able to be introducing certain things. Who were the four imams? Who were some of the major Sahaba? You know, what were some of the things that happened in history? Make it fun, play games. Have little, okay, well, whoever gets the trivia questions right, they get a piece of whatever it is, even if it's candy. You have to do it with sugar, you have to do it with sugar, but you have to make learning Islam fun for them so that they like to do it. When they get older, they want to do it. How many of us have drilled our kids and drilled our kids and drilled our kids and make them hate learning Islam? When they get older, the last thing they want to do is hear what anybody has to say about Islam. We need to make sure that we don't do this to our children. Right? Another tip that I wanted to talk about tonight, and I'm trying to rush this because I know I've gone over those couple of minutes I said I was going to do, but these are things that are important. You need to and to apply these things so that we can stop losing our children to society, to the streets, that they grow up and they have their Islamic identity intact. Something that's important, especially for those of you who have older children. And when I say older, they're getting into their teens and things along these sorts. Keep those lines of communication open. Because living in these societies, we're going to find that our children, they go to school and they're introduced to certain ideas. You need to be able, how are you going to combat these ideas if you don't know the ideas that are going through their heads? If you don't talk to them about, or they don't feel comfortable talking to you about what they're learning in school, if you don't stop and ask them, well, what are you doing in school now? If you don't do this, your kids may be, I'm not even going to say maybe, they probably are being bombarded with a lot of things that actually go against what it is you're trying to teach them at home. And because of the fact that they don't have anybody to dispel these ideologies that they're packing our children with, you can't say anything when they end up falling for it. You have to keep these lines of communication open. You have to allow them to feel comfortable bringing certain things and don't judge them. Oh, well, how can you say this? Well, what did you say? How come? No, listen, they're not going to tell you what it is that they're learning. And if they're not telling you what they're learning from their teachers, from their school plays and all of the rest of this stuff, from their friends at school, if they're not talking to you about it, how are you going to address these issues? We have to remember that parenting is something, it's a major responsibility that we have. We are responsible for bringing this next generation up and so that they can become something, so that they can lead the ummah, because sooner or later we're going to be gone. So we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can do, especially in those Western societies, to make sure that our kids are getting the upbringing that they need so that they can come and they can raise your grandchildren, so that they still have their Islamic identity intact. So that even though that we may have to tell them to do what they have to do now, because of the fact that they were raised upon it and they weren't forced not to like it. As they get older and they start seeing what's what, they'll their go to will be to go back to what it is that they know, and this is Islam. So when it comes time for them to raise their children, they'll raise their children upon it as well. So, I hope that you find what I just said to be beneficial. These tips are important, whether or not you need them as an individual or not. Right now, because I mean, it's possible some of you may be expecting to have kids. You need to know this stuff. And if you don't believe that these are things that you need to be practicing, all you have to do is look around in society. Look at the families that you know and look at what happened. And if you look, most of what I just said wasn't applied. So, take this as a piece of advice from your brother. Share it with those people that you know they have families that they may need to know these things. There's nothing wrong with sharing. If you didn't come up with it, you shared it, and inshallah, Allah will give you the reward for passing the information on that was needed for most of our families, most of our households. And inshallah, we'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to leave your comments. I want to know what it is that you think about these suggestions. And as a matter of fact, leave some more suggestions. I'll do some more videos on, raising our families and tips that we can use to make things a little better and why we should be practicing these things. So leave your suggestions below as well. Inshallah, we'll work on getting some videos put out dealing with some of those issues, or it may be even issues that you may have, or other people that have them. Leave them down below. And don't forget to go and check out the Patreon. The link is in the bottom. And inshallah, we have the bi-weekly live streams and things along these sorts. So inshallah, you can register there and join the community there as well. طيب جزاكم الله خير وبارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.